Hello, happy Monday. I almost said happy Friday. It is not Friday. Hi, Abby. It is Monday. It's a rainy Monday. I have rain sounds on in the background, so maybe I'll turn those down. Hey, Hadley. I have these rain sounds on because it gives me a little white noise. Here we go. Also, I like rain sounds. Gray days that aren't rainy sometimes make me sad, so adding rain sounds makes me feel a little bit happier. Hey, Ash. Friends, I showed you, hey Jack, I showed you my plants on Thursday, whenever that was. I haven't planted them yet. I really need to plant them like today because let me just tell you, they're growing some roots in there. I will post pictures after I plant them, which, like I keep saying, will hopefully be today. All right, I'm going to get started on today's chapter, which is Curtis. I used to joke back when I was first reading this book that Curtis was my literary boyfriend. I really like this chapter. I think it's sweet. I don't have any like big notes in my book about like irony or similes or metaphors or like deep like, you know, the meaning of life or whatever. We're just going to enjoy the story for the most part. All right, so Curtis. And Curtis's little picture is this, right? Because everyone has a picture. It says Letitia's tomatoes, and we'll see why momentarily. All right. Deltoids, awesome. Pecs, check them out. Quads, now playing on a body near you. Can't help being born with this body, or living 3 doors down from Cap's gym. Can't stop people calling me Atlas or Seps. Those of you who know who Atlas is, I want you to drop that below. This is an allusion to Greek mythology, Atlas. That's short for Biceps R Us. Actually, I started that name, but that was before Letitia cut me loose. We had us a real nice thing going. She was a few years older than me, always talking about having a family, living in a house in the country, like her aunt's place in Michigan. I wasn't really listening too hard. I was 23. With this body, I had other girls hanging on me at the time. Some of them I just couldn't brush off. When Letitia found out, she slammed the door in my face so hard the paint cracked. Atlas held up the heavens. Yes, he holds the world. So when Curtis says that they call him Atlas, it means that he is strong because he is carrying the world on his back. Good job, friends. You don't know what you got till it's gone. So Letitia was dating Curtis, and Curtis was like, yo girl, like this is great and all, but like I gotta hang out, I gotta see what's out there, I'm still young, you know, like all that nonsense. So sorry, I'm trying to get it so that my face isn't like totally washed out by the window here, but I'm not winning this game. So she was dating him, and he was sort of like, well, I'm kind of playing the field, and Letitia was having none of that. So she slammed the door in his face, which means that she ended the relationship, right? She was like, okay, well, that's not going to work for me, so bye. You don't know what you got till it's gone. All that was 5 years ago. I've caught up to her now, done fooling around. She was looking for a husband, and now I'm looking for a wife. I moved back from Cincinnati in May and ran into her brother the first day. She said she's still single, same 3rd floor apartment. But when I came up to her on the street, she turned her back. Wouldn't let me explain. Twice it happened, no chance for words. So I decided to give her some deeds instead. Hi friends who just joined. She lives straight across the street from the garden. I staked out a spot right by the sidewalk where she could look down and see it. So he's decided if she won't let him talk to him, then he will just show her how he feels with his actions. It's worth trying, definitely. I staked out a spot right by the sidewalk where she could look down and see it. Then I came home with 6 little tomato plants in plastic containers. She had a serious thing for tomatoes. She'd put a monster slice on a piece of bread and call it a sandwich. She'd even bite into 'em, just like apples. Always talking about eating 'em out of her aunt's garden when she was a kid, and how she wanted to grow 'em someday. She probably thought I forgot all that. I planted 'em right there in front of her eyes to show her I had it, that I was waiting for her. I got the biggest beefsteak tomatoes. I could see 'em in my mind, bright as traffic lights flashing at her across the street. I'd never grown anything before. I got into it. Every day something new. The first flower bud, then those first yellow flowers, then the tomatoes growing right behind 'em. This old man with no teeth and a straw hat showed me how to tie the plants up to stakes. Then someone else told me all their diseases. If you think you know who the old man in the straw hat and no teeth is, go ahead and drop that in the box. That got me worrying. What if all my plants started wilting or caught blight and died? That wasn't any message I'd want her to see. I started coming straight from work to check 'em. I noticed every hole in every leaf. I picked off bugs, pulled out weeds, and gave 'em lots of that fertilizer called tomato food, like somebody told me. From little green marbles, these tomatoes started growing. Then they started getting orange. Then they went to red. I kept looking up at Letitia's window, wanting her to see it too. I am thinking, so I'm getting responses about who the person with no teeth and a straw hat is. My inference would also be Tio1, because he's our character that's constantly referred to as having a straw hat. And it wouldn't surprise me if he had no teeth, because we know he's really old, right? Okay, where was I? Okay. I kept looking up at Letitia's window, wanting her to see it too, to see the garden. The only faces looking back were the drunks that hang out under her place. That liquor store's all boarded up, but they still suck on their bottles there anyway. They like to call me field slave and sharecropper. Ask how Massa's crops is doing. I could have banged their heads together and shut 'em up, but I didn't. That was part of the point of the tomatoes. So I want to go back in and just get at a little bit of this, because it's really important that we kind of address this. So just Curtis is black. And when the guys that hang out under Letitia's, like kind of off to the side of the garden, they call him field slave and sharecropper, and they ask how Massa's crops is doing, they're sort of invoking this idea of slavery, right? And they're sort of saying, oh, like, you're black and you're growing stuff, so you must... I'm sorry, I'm distracted by the fact that Mr. Rue has joined this live stream. Hello, Mr. Rue. How are you? How is Norman? How's everyone? We're just talking about some gardening. Seedfolks. Good stuff. So these guys that hang out are goading him by, like, calling him a slave and calling him a sharecropper and basically making fun of him for the fact that he is black, kind of, and just sort of, like, hearkening back to, like, oh, well, if you're planting stuff, like, who are you planting for, blah, blah, blah. So they're just kind of, like, getting his goat a little bit. That's me now, they're making fun of him. Yep. And so, but this is great because Paul Fleischman, the author, is going to use this opportunity to tell us about how Curtis has grown, okay? So he says, I could have banged their heads together to shut him up, but I didn't, right? So he could have beat them up. But he didn't. That was part of the point of the tomatoes. I was showing Letitia that just because I got muscles don't mean I'm some jungle beast. I stopped working out and stopped going out with no shirt, no matter how hot it was. When some chicks would be walking by and see me there and say, looking fine, I knew they meant me, but I'd point to the biggest tomato in the back and say, "Sure is." My homies all laughed to see me out there, stopped calling me Seps, started in calling me Tomato. I just smiled. Yes, Vince. They are certainly acting racist. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Started calling me Tomato. So he's working really hard to show Letitia that he has changed, right? Alright. Those tomatoes got as big as billiard balls. It's okay, Mr. One day when I checked them, my biggest one, the one I'd been watching closest, was gone. The next day, another one was gone. It wasn't insects that took them. I was mad. Who does he think has taken these? Is it animals? He says it's not insects, so who probably is it? They weren't even all the way ripe yet. My plants were right there, by the sidewalk. I put chicken wire around them, and even on top, but people could still reach in if they tried. I couldn't guard them day and night. Then Royce showed up, just in time. You drop bread on the ground, and birds come out of nowhere. Same with that garden. People just appeared. People you didn't know were there. Royce was like that, except he didn't want nobody knowing he was there. One of the gardeners saw that her pile of grass clippings was all spread out, had sort of a human print in it. He had been sleeping there nights and leaving early. One morning he slept late. I'm the one who found him. He was 15, black, built big, looked like I did. His face was banged up. Said his father did it and threw him out. He said he didn't want to go back. I bought him breakfast and we made us a deal. So, yes, people are taking the tomatoes, right? His plot is right by the sidewalk, so anyone walking by could probably just grab one. It could have been Letitia, but we're going to find out. I found him a place closer to my tomatoes, but hidden by somebody's corn, so the cops wouldn't see him sacked out. I bought him a brand new sleeping bag. I gave him money for food that week. Then I picked up a pitchfork for $3 at a junk shop. His part of the deal was that if he saw or heard anyone mess with my tomatoes, he'd come at them full speed, holding the pitchfork. So he's going to pitchfork whoever is holding the tomato, whoever is grabbing the tomatoes. That was my best shot at protecting him at night. For daytime, when Royce was gone, I painted a big sign that said, Letitia's Tomatoes. I put it right there in front of the plants, facing the sidewalk. If people know something belongs to a person instead of the city or the U.S. government, they're more likely to let it be. When I'd pounded it in, I filled up my water can. Walking back, I looked up at her window, and, still as a cat, behind that lace curtain, there was her face, staring down at the sign. And that's where the chapter ends. Another cliffhanger, which is one of Paul Fleischman's favorite things to do here. So, Curtis is trying to show Letitia that he has changed. If you were Letitia, do you think that you would be swayed by this? So remember that Letitia and Curtis had been dating, and then he had been also dating other people, and so she said, nope, we're done here. And then when he came back a few years later, she doesn't want to talk to him. So he plants her this garden, and it seems like she has seen it. So if you were, pardon me, if you were Letitia, would you be swayed by this to come back to Curtis or not? What do you think? Hadley wants to know if Letitia becomes a character in the book. She does not become a character in the book. If I remember correctly, we do see her, maybe in like the last scene. We get like a last glance at the garden, I think. And we can make an inference about what happens, but she does not have her own chapter. That's a good question. So Abby says that she would not be swayed by Curtis planting tomatoes for her. Abby, I would be interested to hear a little bit more about that. We have about 2 minutes to chat. Would you be swayed? I think so. I'll tell you my answer while you're typing. Since I used to call Curtis my literary boyfriend, it's pretty clear that that I would have been swayed by it. At least to give him another chance. You know, it's not like you're gonna run out there and be like, marry me, Curtis. But maybe it would be worth another chance. She is mad. I would probably go and talk to him and give him one last chance to forgive me. I like that. I think that that's a really good thought, is like, she's mad, but like, he's clearly trying, so maybe then maybe that's worth at least one chance to hear what he has to say. I think that's pretty good thought, Liliana. I think that's smart. Hadley, just something. Hi, Caillou. How are you? Hadley, in my garden, rabbits and other animals love to eat my tomatoes. Yeah, I believe that my mother has the same problem in her garden. But let me tell you, George does not eat tomatoes. Although he has become less picky in recent years. I'm good, Caillou. I miss school, but I'm good otherwise. Anyone else? Thoughts about what you would do if Curtis planted you a delightful garden full of your favorite vegetables? I wonder what my favorite vegetable is that somebody could plant me. My mom used to have gardens, still does. My favorite thing that she ever planted was cucumbers, because cucumbers from the grocery store don't taste like much, but from the garden, they are delicious. Same thing with tomatoes, I guess. Okay. Oh, Abby, because he would probably just do the same thing over again. Okay, so Abby doesn't really think that Curtis has changed. Miss Kerner says actions speak louder than words. I'm with you. I'm definitely with you. And Hadley says, I get so many tomatoes in my garden, we can't even eat them all. Hadley, you hit me up next time that happens. I would be happy to swing by and do my part to contribute to the tomato eating. Cucumbers too. Oh, awesome. All right, my friends, I believe that I'm approaching 20 minutes, and I'd like to stay shy of that, so I'm going to end this here. I will see you tomorrow around 9:30 for Nora's chapter. And I said I would post the quiz after, and I didn't, so I owe you a quiz, so I will be delivering that sometime today, is my plan, because things seem to be in control, so that's great. And Liliana says she has bunnies in her yard sometimes that eat the flowers that were there when they moved into the house. Yep, they love flowers, man. Adios, my friends. I will see you tomorrow at 9:30. Have a lovely Tuesday, and I just posted our work for this week on Classroom, or I posted, like, the plan for the week, so you can go check that out. Hi, Gabe, and bye, Gabe. Bye, friends.